Hi, my name is Ben and welcome to Field and Foley. My next guest is Ross Tregenza, a BAFTA-nominated video game composer and sound designer from Cornwall. With an incredible portfolio that includes Helldivers 2, Cyberpunk 2077, DEATHLOOP and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Ross' work has helped to shape the sound of countless iconic games. So Ross, thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so my first question, of course, is you've worked on so many iconic games. What originally drew you to compose music specifically for games?
It was a weird situation where I don't think it really occurred to me when I was younger that was an option it just seems so distant because I've loved video games from when I was like 9 years old. I got my Commodore 64. And yeah, and I love the music of video games from the first second I played one. It was a big part of my life immediately. But I played video games right through without stopping into my early 20s. And at that time I was in a lot of bands. I was trying to just play live in bands and get some success in that area. But it never really occurred to me to put my two loves of music and video games together until one day I met a guy who was like a big legend in the games industry. And he kind of made me realize, hey, hold on, if I actually think about this, I could put my two favorite things together and become not only a musician, but a video game musician. So one day there was a big sort of explosion in my brain and I realized that that's what I wanted to be.
Very cool. You just put the pieces together.
Yeah,
that's something that's funnily enough that occurs a lot with people that find their niche. It's like, oh, I didn't know this existed. Oh, right, this exists. I should do this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. Speaking of Commodore 64, that's very cool because I also started with that, like doing my first programming exercises on those. And
nice.
Do you have like any specifics from back then that are like your favorites music-wise, if you still remember them?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, I still the first songs that I loved on my Commodore. They're like, if nothing's happening in my head, then that music starts playing like screensaver music in my head. My two favorite games for music were number 2 was Outrun, which had really cool music, and number 1 was The Last Ninja, which is, although it's slightly more obscure as a game, the music from The Last Ninja by a composer called Ben Dalglish, who unfortunately passed away it's about 5 or 6 years ago, I think now. His music, I think just the music from that game has pretty much defined where I am now, like everything about my career. Like I love that music so much. It was in my head for like all my years growing up. I'm very happy to say that I went to like a Commodore music game festival thing in Brighton in UK about 10 years ago, and I got to meet him and say to him like, thank you so much for what you've done. I'm now a video game composer, and what you wrote was a big part of why I'm doing what I do now. So that was really cool. But those Commodore, and I still love the sound of a Commodore. The SID chip on a Commodore, like nothing beats it. I don't know why it's so special, but it's just beautiful. I love it so much.
I totally agree with you. Like, I mean, music was a big part of the Commodore appeal, I think. And
yeah.
Just like you said, like the chips are still sort of after today, and people like build new synthesizers out of them, or like break them open and do something with them.
Yeah.
And from especially also like from the hacker point of scene, I mean, I remember a lot of those bootleg games had these bootloaders with like specific cool graphics and music that did something.
The music was always cool on those.
Yeah,
like there was the cool like scrolling graphics and things, and I love the music. Yeah. I had when I was a little older, still young, like maybe 11 years old. I was playing games on my Atari. At that point in my life, my father worked for like a shipping company, so we moved to different countries sometimes. I was living in Cyprus, and I guess what I was buying from the shop, I guess, was bootleg games, but I didn't even realize. I just thought they're like, hey, these are cool. They're not as expensive as the ones in the big boxes, but I was a kid. I didn't know why they were cheap. But they had those cool like loading screens with like amazing graphics, and like the music in those was so good. In like looking back now, I guess they're like it's like crackers. What they call them, crackers back then instead of like hackers?
I think so. So. Crackers for like breaking the copyrighted material into copyable material.
I guess by mistake I was doing a crime, but I was a little kid. Course. I didn't know.
Yeah, the same for me. Like I was very young, so I didn't like understand the whole like idea of intellectual property and everything.
Yeah.
But I was also very, very intrigued, like putting a game in that's just copied somewhere, and then suddenly, like just like I said, it started scrolling and the music, and
Yeah,
there was
so cool.
visuals where it's like, oh, I didn't even know the computer could do that. It's so amazing. And yeah, getting into that, I think that is also something that brought me into like programming and trying to do it myself, because I always thought like, cool, I just have to learn how that works, and I can do the same thing. And yeah, that's that's how my journey into IT started. But moving back a bit again to the composing, because I've seen that you've been listed as secondary composer on some of those titles, and I'd like to, especially for my audience, always go into all the little details of what audio jobs are.
Yeah.
So can you maybe briefly explain what is a secondary composer, because I don't think everyone knows what that entails.
Yeah, I do. I always try to make sure I list my involvement in projects in a way that doesn't. There's kind of two things that can happen there. Like, first of all, you could intentionally leave out some details to make it sound like you were, a bigger part of a project than you were, and that's a bullshit thing to do. You should never do that, because that's detracting from the work of somebody else. Yeah. And secondary, there's just like I said, like people don't understand some of these quite reasonably. They don't understand how it works with games, with composers and stuff. It used to be like when I joined the industry, maybe sometimes you would have 2 or 3 people on a project as composers, but more often than not, it would be just one person would compose all the music for a game. Because back then, maybe you'd be talking 30, 40 minutes of music on a big game. These days, you could be talking whatever, hours, maybe like 10 hours of music on a game. And now that's become more common. The audio directors that are commissioning the music for games, they get a lot of value out of requesting music from a few different composers. And it's a great idea, because you have different people with different backgrounds and different skill sets that are bringing, their history of music into the game in different ways. So, I mean, I've worked... I've been primary composer on a few projects, but also I think more as secondary composer over the last 5 or 6 years as my career has been growing and stuff. But if we take an example, maybe Cyberpunk is a great example. For that game, there are so many different musicians doing so many different things. The core music, and by core music I mean like the main themes when you load the game, and the dynamic music when you're in like action and fights in the games, and the ambient music, stuff like that. That is written in-house by a guy called Marcin and his a small team of very talented, another guy called PT, a small team of internal composers they're writing huge amounts of music, and they're also involved in the setup, working with the audio director and the sound designers for getting that working. So those are the superstars of the project. Like, those are the guys that deserve the main praise. Under that, the next level is there's licensed music, and then there's music written specifically for the game to go onto the radio stations and things like that. Yeah. And I'm kind of for Cyberpunk, I was at the smaller end of that. So my work on Cyberpunk was writing music for all the adverts and billboards in the game, and all the TV stations. So, which I'm not saying that like it was either like a small task or like a small part of the game, because you hear it constantly I didn't realize when I wrote it that there's no escape from my music in Cyberpunk. Like wherever you go, there's like 3 of my songs playing at once, which I love.
It's a real dystopian future, but but you nailed it. Like, the vibe was good. Yeah,
it was like the idea was we wanted that like Blade Runner vibe of wherever you go, it's like this relentless wall of sound, like you're living in New York or London, but times 100, so that there's no escape from the sense of a city. So the music director Marcin, he said to me, okay, so we need 130 of these different very small songs for these adverts and billboards, but every single one needs to sound like it's from a different composer. so that was no small task. Yeah, that was a big job. But it was great. Like by the time I was into like number 100, I'd be like, okay, how many instruments do I have left that I haven't used yet? So let's try a sitar and some drum and bass. Or I don't know, like I was going a bit crazy. But yeah, that's the role of a secondary composer, is often things like that. Same with Deathloop. For Deathloop, I was writing music that's played like in the clubs and coming out of radios. A lot of the term's diegetic for like music that's played in world. So it's not like the 2D soundtrack music. It's emitting somewhere in the world, like playing from a radio or from a TV or in a like club speakers. So it's often used for like expanding on the like the character of the world and trying to like sell the sense of where you are and stuff. So like for Deathloop, it was lots of like 70s psychedelic rock mixed with like sort of a psytrance kind of vibe. It was because Deathloop is a strange sort of mix of different times and genres and stuff. So that was a nice blend as well. But yeah, just the secondary composer role that I've done a lot is it's a real pleasure. Like a primary composer, like for Texas Chainsaw, things like that is great as well. But there's a freedom in being a secondary guy that you're just delivering these tracks and then they're injected into the world in that way. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a real world building job. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
I can just say, like, so far you have done an amazing job. I've played both of those games and enjoyed both of those soundscapes
thank you.
a lot. And especially, I'm very wary of all those little details. Just like you said, like a radio's playing there, or I don't know, an advert is playing. I don't know how many hours of ads I just listened or looked at in games, because I really enjoyed it, and it's something where I then see and feel as a player how much detail really is in the world, right? Because if someone, just like you, if you said like, hey, you're gonna do like 140 different adverts, that means they are putting a lot of care into the world building. And I think even people that don't stop and listen to it actively, they can really feel that, and it adds so much to a game. Yeah, so,
I think those two games, they shared from an audio perspective, they both had very, very strong audio direction. Yeah. Like both of those games, from the first day I was on the project, there was no like a indecision about what they wanted. That they could tell me from day one very strong ideas of like, we want to try this. We are definitely not this. Like for Cyberpunk, he said we're not doing synthwave. We're not doing Blade Runner. We are our own game. We have our own sound, and I loved that. It was great to hear it. And same with Deathloop. The audio director Michelle, like. Some of the songs that I wrote for Deathloop, we got to like version number 46 and things like that, where like, but I loved it because it wasn't like he was being an asshole and just didn't like my music or something. He knew what he wanted, and like we would go and I would send versions and again and again and again, and then one day he'd be like, perfect, okay, next song.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Like if someone is really committed to it, and just like I said, if someone is not being like an ass, but you can feel it's just like, we want to hone this down. Yeah. And I can absolutely relate to that with sound work as well, because sometimes you have a sound effect that is like the first thing is that the thing that you take, and sometimes you iterate like endlessly. I have some of those sounds where it's like, oh yeah, version 86, and it's still not the thing, and maybe I need to leave this for a week and do something else.
Yeah,
and,
but
I it is really worth it in the end. Yeah, if you have that vision and if you nail it at some point, it's like, oh yeah, this one really feels right.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. Sometimes it's the first version, sometimes it's 6 months later that you get it right.
Indeed. There's this wonderful, I don't know if you know the skit, there's this wonderful little bit about Gorillaz, the band, and their Clint Eastwood music. Where this came
with the
from.
Omnichord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it blew my mind.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but then I was like, of course. I mean, I've seen this happen, but I didn't expect it to be like a number one hit somewhere, to have the same history where someone is just like, oh, this preset sounds nice, and it's the actual drums of the finished song.
Yeah.
I'm gonna link that probably in the description for people that don't know that, because it's amazing.
Everybody should watch that. It's wonderful. I love the honesty of the like, hey, look, we did this. It sounds great. Done.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something like, just like you said, if you have strong vision, you feel like, okay, this one fits it perfectly. Why try to make it something else?
Yeah.
Yeah. And going to another game that I really enjoy right now with my friends, Helldivers 2. You also worked there with other composers. If you're as a role with other composers, how do you ensure that your contributions fit with the world? Because especially for Helldivers, for example, it's a very specific, I don't know, nationalist,
Yeah.
fascist kind of democracy in air
Yeah.
quotes music, and it has to fit everything. And I don't know exactly what maybe we started like this. What did you do on Helldivers specifically? I know you did like the national anthem thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, again, I'm for Helldivers. I was secondary composer. So the main score of the game is by Will Roget, who's a real well, I say rising star, but he's not a rising star. He's top. he's doing a lot of the best games. Like he's nominated, longlisted for 2 games at once for the BAFTAs this year, which is, I mean, that's just crazy.
Awesome.
Very talented guy. So the main score is by him. So my work was a lot of it again was diegetic music. So if you're in your spaceship in the game, all the adverts you can see, all of the music for those was by me. And then also I always like it if my music features in a good position in the game, and it can't really beat this. But every time you load Helldivers, it shows like a little first like cinematic with the Super Earth, and I got to write that first bit of music. So I get I did the very first little bit when you load the game. So I love it that so many millions of times that's been listened to. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
So kind of. It's like if you consider Will's music is the core there, I'm just sort of filling in a lot of gaps around the side and stuff like that, including the anthem, which Sony made a really nice video just I guess like a month or so ago now, and that's people seem to love it. Like the video itself is on almost like 1 million hits already, and the soundtrack has been a big success. It's on all like the streaming media and stuff. Primarily for me, it's my my Super Earth anthem, which doesn't even really feature very strongly in the game yet. I guess they'll in some of the missions you have to raise a flag, and you can hear like a non-vocal version of it, like instrumental version of it. But I think they'll probably just keep using it at various points as like a It was it was crazy writing that track. It started with me sitting where I used to have a piano over here somewhere, and I used to be over here, and just me sitting with my cat on my lap with a cup of coffee. I spent a day listening to like national anthems from around the world, and it needed, because it's obviously there's this satire in Helldivers of the fascism and stuff like that. So I needed to pick like the biggest, most ridiculous anthems from around the world and figure out what was interesting about them and why they were so ridiculous and over the top and stuff. So I did that, and then I just sat with my cat on my lap with a cup of coffee and just played on the piano. And it was a long time before we finished it, but I think 1.5 years later I was at Abbey Road in London with the choir from Star Wars like singing my song. It's like, how did this happen? It's crazy.
Yeah, first of all, like, well done on that, because I'm really enjoying that stuff. And yeah, like my follow-up question to that, or like my actual question to that was like, how do you ensure your contributions fit? So that means for me, like, do you have already music from the main composer and you're trying to do the same or do something that fits in with that? Or, I mean, okay, in this case, you were doing the national anthem, but just something on its own. I mean, it's in the same world. But like, if you're doing something for a game with another composer, how do you like ensure you're on the same page of stuff, right?
This sounds kind of crazy, and people have asked me the question before, and it's made me think about it a lot more. But the answer will seem weird, but no information about what the other composers are doing. Like I didn't for Cyberpunk, for DEATHLOOP, for Helldivers, all of those games, I didn't hear any of the other composers' music until the game was released.
Wow.
It comes down, in the end, it comes down to the audio director at the company having a good vision and being like, they're almost like those guys that land planes at the airport. They're just bringing in all these different things from different directions, and they need to have the vision and the confidence in the sound for their game to say like, okay, so Ross is over here doing this stuff, that's going okay. Will's over here doing that, and weirdly, it's it's not common to hear what the other composers are working on. It's also some of these games are very big,
Of course, yeah,
and
big teams.
leaks and confidentiality and stuff is even if they wanted to show me the work of the other composers, there would be a lot of things, a lot of legal stuff for them to get through, because it's such a risk for, I mean, obviously how harmful it is when content is released, either deliberately or just through people being careless. So, like for the internal team, they work in a situation where they have very clever, strong IT systems to stop leaks happening. But especially for external composers like me, they really can't risk a lot. So, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Because I also work as audio director for Sumo Nottingham. I know, and I've worked with external composers. I know how careful we have to be not to let information get leaked. So it's very tight. When you're working externally, you only get the information you need, and so they'll probably send me some like concept art and some like YouTube references for similar songs and style references and things. But in terms of anything other than exactly what I need to know, I just don't know it. And so I just have to, they'll give me a copy of the game, obviously, but then I'll just, day one, I'll play the game. I'm like, oh shit, this other music sounds great.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I thought at least like if you're composing songs beside someone else that you would like switch notes or speak about like themes or musical themes that you want to pick up from each other. But of course, if you're more working on diegetic things, then that doesn't probably make sense to pick up the main theme of the game, of course.
Yeah, I think this is also, like you say, it's quite specific to my circumstance that I'm providing what is almost like it has no real connection in a lot of those circumstances. It's almost, you kind of want it to be disconnected, because the diegetic music needs to be just its own thing. The player's brain needs to disconnect the main score from the diegetic music, which somehow your brain does in games. Like even if they're playing at the same time, your brain is sorting that out. So I mean, if say on Helldivers, if Will and I were working together on the dynamic music during combat or something, it would be crazy for us not to be talking. But when I'm just providing in-world music and his music is this abstract, dynamic music on top, then it's not a problem.
Yeah. And one other question for Helldivers, just because we're enjoying it so much. I don't know if you can answer that, but it's a question from one of my friends, actually from one of our listeners, from Mo, who asked, because he doesn't know a lot about music composition, just like I'm just a sound guy. But he asked, like, why do you think the music works so well in games like Helldivers? Because he, especially, is someone that really doesn't like weapons or war at all. It's like not his thing. But the music and atmosphere is so capturing, and you're like in this game shooting bugs, and it's like, yeah, democracy, hell yeah, you know. And to make this change in a brain, I feel like especially sound and music play a big part. Do you have maybe some kind of explanations that can help people understand why that works?
Yeah, I mean, I feel exactly the same as him. I mean, I'm a very gentle guy. I'm a pacifist. I'm very sort of all about peace and love. But when I'm killing those bugs with big machine guns, I'm so happy. It's kind of weird, because really, I suppose, in that kind of situation, we're drawing on what has always been drawn on to encourage people into like war and things like that. That it's like the sound of like brass, like big brass and major chords and choirs and things like that. Throughout history, it's been drawn on to like stir up people in every situation. It's there's something about huge choirs doing major chords and big like brass sections and rising violins that just it causes some kind of stirring emotion that it always has done, from classical music back to the very beginning of when it started. So yeah, it's using tricks from history basically just to play with people's emotions, so that we're like, yeah, let's kill those bugs.
Yeah
like I said before, I kind of looked over, for my part of it, I was just looking over national anthems from around the world, and I also realised that there's some key takeaways that give it extra value. Like for the national anthem, it needs to be singable and not too complicated, so that it gets stuck in your head, and B, you can sing along. And so musically, it's not jumping around all over the place. There's no like crazy instrument solos or like virtuoso sections in it or anything. It's da, 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 da. Everything is moving in nice clean sections from very small jumps. That's what I noticed about national anthems, and about, I was looking into all this sort of music from that's like supposed to be stirring people for like war and things like that. It's always very ba, da, 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 da. It never jumps around very much, and it kind of it's tricks by composers through history to get you on the heart.
Okay, so you're using the old school tricks.
Yeah.
Another question I have on my mind is, like, when you're starting a new project, and that's something I always ask people, but it's always interesting to hear. What's like the first step in your creative process? Like, you get the first concept art, you get an idea of what you do. What's your go-to start for a project?
I really enjoy the beginning of every project. It's just because I think whatever the project, there's something to be excited about. So I always request as much reference in terms of visual and like music or sound design stuff as possible. And it's kind of, I digest it. Then I'll spend a few days, I'm thinking about nothing else other than the all these influences going into my brain. Sometimes when I'm excited about it, I'll buy some new like records and things like that, like soundtracks in the same genre, things like that. There's always a few days where like my brain is running on overtime and I'm just taking in everything and I obsess about it. And then there's the wonderful process of beginning, like the first thing. So for music stuff, I usually start with the piano, just because you have to start somewhere. So I'll just open a new project and I'll just start playing a few notes, just trying to figure out like how does it sound. Start picking instruments, but that first phase, it's very exciting. It's I always, when I'm talking to an audio director or whoever my point of contact is on a project, I always make it very clear to them that whatever I'm doing as like a first iteration on a project, it could be thrown away. That's no problem, because I think some people are overly protective about the music they write, but I've been doing this for like almost 25 years now. Like I've had whole projects with music that I loved just gone into the trash immediately. So I don't have that I'm not so protective on my music. So I try and make sure I can say to people, I will send you some first ideas, some sketches, we tend to call it, where it's not like a whole song. It'll be like 30 seconds or something, and I'll write that and I'll send them like 5 different ones, and I'll be like, do you anything here you like? And sometimes it's like, nope, none of this is right, and that's cool. They all go in the trash and we carry on moving. And I really enjoy that process. And I know it sounds weird to say that I'm writing music that I'm throwing away, but it's nice, because eventually something will happen and they're like, wow, no, here we got something cool here. Let's move on that. And then that's the seed that becomes the tree of the music for the project. So it's creatively, it's a very exciting time. And even though there's a lot of writing and throwing away and writing and throwing away, like eventually you get there. Like earlier this year, for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we had a DLC, like an expansion on the game that was in the style of like the film Halloween and John Carpenter and things like that. So we spent a really long period of time, me and the CEO of the company, Wes Keltner. He's very directly involved in the music. We have a very good open relationship with like how we're like, how I'm doing the music. But we spent a long time toing and froing about how it should sound, and me trying things. He's like, no, it's way too modern, or no, it's too classic horror. But then when I locked in, and he said, yes, there we go. Like, I managed to write almost that entire soundtrack in 3 weeks, which was amazing. Because every time I send him a track, he's like, yes, shit, version 1. Okay, on to the next one. And we kept doing that. So yeah, I love the beginning of a project because I've been doing it long enough now that I have the confidence that if I send something to someone at the beginning and they're like, sorry, man, no, that's completely off the mark. I don't like it at all. Like when I was younger, I'd be like, oh no, I messed up my chance and I've ruined it forever.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, no, that's cool. Okay, right, let's try something else. And I think that's a very important thing at the early times in your career, that just because you send something to someone and they don't like it, that doesn't mean you're a bad musician. I mean, for the sequel to Blade Runner, Johan Johansson, who's I think one of the greatest soundtrack musicians of all time, sadly no longer with us, but he wrote a full score for Blade Runner, and they decided they didn't like it and kicked him off the project and got Hans Zimmer's one was great, by the way, it was amazing. But that's what I tell myself anytime that someone's like, I'm sorry that you put all this time into a track, but it's not working for us. I think, well, this happened to Johan Johansson on Blade Runner. So, like, if that can happen, then, I'm nowhere near as good as him. So,
Yeah, I think also that there's a very important skill to have to not. Yeah, I mean, kill your darlings is an old saying from the movie industry, but it's absolutely right. And that's also something I'm always also prefacing when I'm working with someone new and saying to them, hey, you can tell me it's trash and we throw it away, and I will not take it personally, because we want to make something that fits. And I really try to urge them to say that they don't like them, and not try to work around this by saying, oh, it's not quite this. Like, they should tell me really straight, no, that's not working out, because we both know then to move on, right? Yeah.
It's anytime I start a new project, it's I have a sort of a soft agenda to talk through with the new team, and that's always something I mention. So like, I always say it's pretty much the same speech every time. I say, like, I've been in the industry a long time. I have no problem with throwing music away. Like, if it's not right, it's not right. We'll start again. And like you said, like, and same with sound design and stuff. It's if things aren't right, people need to not feel awkward about saying, like, I mean. And also, if you're a sound designer or composer and someone says to you, like, hey, I'm sorry, this isn't going in the right direction, and you're being an asshole about it, then you're not going to be in the industry for a long time.
Yeah, indeed. Do you sometimes keep those things that you liked and they didn't fit for something else or for a personal project, or do you really throw everything away?
I keep them. Obviously, I mean, it would be crazy to delete them for no reason, but I always keep them with the idea that one day I can use them for something else, but I don't know. It's never happened. I write a lot. I write a lot of music. I do a lot of sound design. I think I don't ever really feel the need to hold on to things too much. I prefer to always just keep moving forward. I think I get better at music and I get better at sound design every year. If I look back at my work 1 year ago or 5 years ago, I think I could have done that so much better now. And I'm not a guy that struggles with quantity. Like I work all the time. I'm a little obsessive, and so I keep it, but I don't care about it. It's not that I don't care. That's not the right phrase.
I know what you mean.
I don't care about reusing it,
right?
So maybe if I have some electro cowboy jazz track that I wasn't used, and then someone's like, hey, do you have an electro cowboy jazz track? I could maybe go, I have this one. But even then, I think I would rather start again. I love the beginning of a new project. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it really shines through that you like the work itself and the composing itself. So it doesn't make sense to use something when you could have the joy of doing something new. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's my passion. It's all I think about every day. So I just, starting fresh on anything is a pleasure. So it's never a problem.
Wonderful. And do you have like a preference in terms of crafting more high intensity action soundtracks or the more quieter atmospheric pieces?
I like to try everything, but I think if I'm honest with myself, I'm kind of better with like the moodier, darker, slower things, because I really enjoy. I think maybe it's from the last few years of working on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was very real pleasure for me. But I do enjoy working on like slow, textural, dark like evolving soundscapes and things, which is kind of weird because I came from a background of like industrial electro music before I was in the games industry. So like, and that was very like all my tracks were like 160 BPM or 140 BPM. Like I've made the jokes plenty of times with my friends that every 10 years my music slows down by another 10 BPM.
Nice.
10 BPM.
and at
like,
some point you're gonna invent
was,
slowcore, the new genre.
Yeah, like everything was like 160 BPM when I was 20, and now all my songs are like 90 BPM.
I mean, just put double the drums in, and it could sound like
exactly.
Right?
It's fine. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I also enjoy that these kind of moody build-up tracks, because especially for games when the player is sometimes like spending an hour or more in a place just exploring, and you have something that's evolving in the background and it's setting the mood. I think it really helps when you have slow things that just build up over time, and maybe add instruments when something is happening in the environment. That's something that I really enjoy, like all those dynamic parts.
I for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because the original film was a very avant-garde, a very experimental soundtrack, which was a great starting point. It was exciting to build from that. But also that was like a 90-minute film, and there was very short periods of intense action, and other than that, very like often no music or no sound design, just well, not no sound, but you know, like very sparse, just digest, very sparse, so for the game it was difficult because I can't go crazy all the time because people might be playing it for 15 hours at a time. So it was I spent a lot of time at the beginning thinking about how I manage the music in a way that we can have the intensity, but it's not always there. And it ended up with this this system that I really liked. There's like a XY grid of throughout a game. There's like an X grid of slow rising tension through the game. One of the core factors was the health of all the you have 4 people trying to escape, and so their combined health was like a number that we used. So as that number drops, the tension rises. There's more like dread and like noise and stuff like that starts building. But if you have like you spend a lot of time hiding and things like that, but if you have an encounter with the people trying to kill you, then it's like and there's a sudden rush of music, which is like the Y-axis. So the Y-axis is fast and drops off again quickly, but there's always underneath there's this rising X-axis. So I've used that since in a few other projects. It works quite nicely that you have like a narrative to the music, then that there's a building tension, but during that building tension there's just little peaks every now and then. So yeah, it worked quite nicely. It gives you like a sense of like a film sense, but you don't get too much quiet and you don't get too much like crazy noise in your ears, like because it's when it goes crazy in that game, it's like it's a lot of like, it's almost white noise at points. It's like screaming pigs and metal and screams and distortion, like 70s tape distortion and stuff. So awesome. and that stuff is great for a short period of time, but you don't want to hear that like all evening.
It gets grating for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, I like the kind of systems that you set up dynamically. That is something that's always fun to me. I mean, also for sound design, of course, but also for the music. And maybe something else that I have in mind is, do you have something maybe that is an underrated project you worked on? Something where you think like it didn't really get the praise it deserved, or something where you're really proud of your work, but it was, I don't know, obscure and nobody notices it?
That's a nice question. I think possibly the game Homefront: The Revolution that I did. It was a sequel to the original game Homefront that did okay. It was like fairly successful, but we picked up the sequel when I worked at a company called Dambusters in Nottingham like 10 years ago now. But we were in a strange situation where it was a very long project. It was like about 7 years we were working on it, and there were points where like it was me and my friend Graham, we've worked together for a lot of our careers. He's the guy that did GoldenEye and Time Splitters and stuff like that. He's a super legend of the industry. But we were, the pace we were working at, we kind of had everything at a good level, so we had more time to experiment. So we were starting to build systems just because we had the time to build them. So for that project, we ended up with some time on our hands where we could try some crazy stuff. So we built some really interesting systems in that game just because we had the time to build them. So for example, it's like a future where North Korea's won a war against America and it's taken it over, and there's police on the streets patrolling, and there's lots of people just having to work. And so we had to build this world where you wander around and you hear people talking all the time. So we thought, whenever you hear that in games, that dialogue is always so bad and so basic. Like, can we do better? So what we decided to do was build this system of dialogue where we had I think 25 different voices, and any combination of those 25 characters could talk to another one of those combination of 25 characters, but with a 4-line conversation that would trigger before you approach them. So by the time you got to them, they were already like halfway through talking about something, because it's not for you. That's something I always hated in like open world games. You walk up to someone and they're like, "Hey, how about this weather?" And it's like, why were they not like living their lives before you got there? So for this system, there's almost like a random amount of time before you approach some people, and they're already talking about some stuff that's not about you or about your story and your world. So it ended up being, we wrote 50,000 lines of dialogue for that game, and we recorded for weeks and weeks in London at a studio and stuff. Like I was writing, because I wrote the dialogue, and there was so much I was having to we went to London to record it, but we needed more, so I was staying up until 4 a.m. and writing my laptop and getting up at 7 and going into the studio and directing the actors. But we ended up with this really rich world that I'm very proud of. Like, the game itself did fine. It was nobody's going crazy about it, but it did okay. But if you wander around the streets of that game, I'm so proud of that dialogue, because we worked so hard on that. And it's just cool. You wander through like a crowd of people, and they're all just living their lives, which was what we intended. It's a cool system. Out of my career, it's one of the, weirdly, because it's not close to the most successful game in my career, but it's one of the systems I'm most proud of, I think.
That's a wonderful answer. That's why I asked the question, and I just made a note to check it out myself, because that sounds like a wonderful. That sounds like right up my alley, because especially those exploration parts in open world games was always something that I enjoyed. I mean, for me at least, something like in Skyrim or in other games, walking through nature is something that I really enjoyed. And I've worked on the mod of bringing Morrowind to Skyrim. It's called Skywind.
Cool.
I don't know if you know about this, but there was also something that I always stressed, like we need lots more material and lots more like interesting combination. Like if it rains, then there's no like flies buzzing around your ears. If it rains, you can hear the frogs, and we built all those kinds of little tidbits, especially because I know not just me, but a lot of people enjoy just taking in the atmosphere of the world. And if you really really put your heart into that, then you can make something amazing. So I'm definitely gonna check that out. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. I like building the environments of games is one of my favorite things, just because I've done it long enough now that I get it. I can hear in my head how it's going to sound when everything combines, and when it starts combining, I might do some ambient, sort of bass ambiences for areas in a game, and that's on week 1 and week 2 I start putting in a few key very important points of sound design. Maybe there's a windmill or something like that, and then week 3 I start putting in flies and crickets and cicadas and things like that, and then week 4 I start populating with little bits of wind in the trees and stuff like that, and then actually going into the game and standing in one spot and hearing all the sounds combining in one place. That's one of my favorite things about being a sound designer and for games. For Texas Chainsaw, we had quite small maps. It wasn't like Skyrim or something where we had to do systemic sound design, where it's we're having to say okay, now we have 10 miles of stuff we have to cover here with sounds in some way. The maps are small enough that I was able to hand place every single sound in the map. So I would just go through, one day I'd be okay, I'm going to put some crickets in the map now. And so over here, it's Texas. It's warm. There's a log pile here, so I put them on these logs. There's long grass here. There would be crickets here. So pop, 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 pop. So I would hand place every single cricket on the map, and yeah, it's hundreds and hundreds of sounds, but it's a lovely way to work because every single creak, every bit of wind, every tree moving, every cricket, everything is hand placed on those maps by me, and I love it. It made me so happy, like wandering around in the game afterwards, and like especially if you like playing now like live on the PS5 and stuff. I'm like nice to like. If I'm crouching behind a tree and I can hear like a cricket in my ear and a crow in a distant tree, and like, I put all of those there.
That is wonderful. Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. That is something that I also enjoy, especially also like walking, like I would call it almost the debugging phase, but it's if I think about it, it's like the bugging phase because you're putting more bugs and insects in. But it's like if you're walking around and it's like, okay, I have the situation now where something is silent and it shouldn't be silent. What should be happening here? And you make a note. It's like, oh, between these and these hours in game, we need something to fill that. That would make sense to make this. And then we did so many things for Skyrim as well. We tried to do it, but like the Skyrim engine was so horrible to work with. But fortunately, we had someone that really, we're knee deep into integration work and did some amazing stuff with interior wind and weather sounds, because that was something that always I hated that in Skyrim. Like you had this massive storm, it's like a thunderstorm, and then you go into a tent and inside it's silent. It's like what? Like or with a wooden shack, like you could see it through the cracks, the light coming in. It looked amazing, but it sounded like nothing. It's like we cannot have that. So we made a system where it's like we recorded a lot of interior weather sounds for specific weathers, and then if you have if you have a heavy rainstorm and you're in a shack, you can hear like the drips coming through the cracks because it's leaking.
That's
right?
Great. I love that stuff. Like doing sound design for 25 years, and I hate missed opportunities in games. I mean, I'm not going to say any ones that I'm thinking about, but I have ones in my head that I'm thinking about. But I hate if I go to like an area in a game and I'm like, oh man, why is there not like cool creaking trees here, or why is there not like wind coming through this tunnel here? It's like this. Sound design is all about opportunities to tell a story, and if people miss it, I'm like, oh man, come on, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, maybe also on the topic of the game music, because we're talking about sound and sound recreation, and there's a lot of things that is hidden there, but it's feelable if you really know your stuff. In your opinion, do you have like an aspect of video game music that players often overlook or underappreciate, that is like really core to the experience, but nobody knows about that?
I think maybe what it means to do like good action music in a video game, because that's something that's developed a lot over the last 20 years. And the difference between good action music in a game and bad action music in a game is now really it's a wide spectrum. So I mean even the top level of that may not be something that most people are actively paying attention to, but the general rule is you have sort of it's a very old rule. It's not always the rule, but you have like ambient music, tension music, action music are the three core stages of like dynamic video game music that's been around since the original Metal Gear game and things like that. So you get kind of just very gentle music while you're exploring. If you're trespassing or going in like near enemies, maybe you get some tension music, and then when you're engaging and having combat, you get action music. The problem used to be in games, and still is for some games, I'm sad to say, that music kicks off the second you get into some action with combat with enemies, and the second it's no longer happening, whoomp, it's gone again. And it's kind of just something that people didn't think about in the old days. So you would be playing a game 15 years ago. Sometimes it would stop if you killed the last guy in like a combat sequence. The bam 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 bam, whoop, and it's gone. And okay, so I killed everyone now, I can relax. And I always hated that in games because that doesn't feel natural. And it just gives you too much good information that you're safe again, and you don't want that really. Like especially with like the horror games that I make quite a lot, you don't want to give people too much a sense of safety. And so what I really like in games is if you kind of mess with people a little bit, like just bring in tension when like quite early, when, or even if there's no need for tension in that current situation, just make them feel uncomfortable. And when the situation, let's say you're no longer in danger, I try and always build systems so that it's not like and then you're okay again, but it's a slow decrease in tension over time until it's obviously okay. But it's kind of like the human body. Like let's say if you're in the street right now and somebody attacked you and you managed to fight them off and ran away, you wouldn't, when they go around the corner, you wouldn't be like, okay, everything's all right now. Like your body would be telling you like bum 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 bum, bum for a long time. So I tried to emulate that with music and sound design systems in games, that it's like the adrenaline coming away from your body, like, but it's not an immediate thing. And people have got a lot better at that. And also the escalation as like time goes on in a combat scene. It's something that happened in Red Dead Redemption 2. I think was the first time I noticed it and thought, oh man, I need to do this as well. This is cool. That like it starts off with some like combat music, and it kind of stays in a loop for a long time. But if you find yourself in that situation for a long time, it kind of takes a step up, and it goes into like, it's almost like a more designed, like real big track. Then it's like, because you've been fighting for a long time, and
it's an epic
really
battle then,
it goes So I did the same thing for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like if one of the horrible crazy people are chasing you, then the music goes crazy and it builds over time. But then if they're still chasing you after 20 seconds, then it's like almost an Easter egg. It flips to a design track that was like really, really, really heavy, and like it's kind of like the adrenaline in your body is now just like supercharged.
Oh man, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful little thing, because just like when you were talking about this is something that I always noticed. Is like this, oh yeah, now this sound cue is ending, so I killed everyone, so I cleared this room. It was like some kind of trigger in my mind. So, oh yeah, I cleared this room. But it's just like you said, it gives me too much information, and it almost makes it more like a checklist. It's like, oh yeah, check this room. This is done now.
Like sometimes you'd be like, hold up, why is the action music still playing? Because it's still going da 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 da, and they're like, oh no, there's a guy stuck in the wall over here. Shoot this guy, and then da da da, like, and then someone be like, clear. I think we got them all. Like, I hate that. That's not good.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a good thing to have. I should have that in the back of my mind. Very, very cool. One other question I always also ask my guests that are longer in the industry, especially, do you have any advice for aspiring new composers or sound designers that want to break into the video game industry? I mean, we already talked about this Kill Your Darlings, which is very important, and making sure to let everyone know, like, hey, it's okay to give me feedback if it doesn't fit, and not take that personally. I've heard that a lot actually, and it is perfect advice. But do you have something else maybe?
I think I've sort of the advice before your first job and the advice when you get your first job. Before your first job, if you're looking for ways to get into the industry, first of all, you should never be embarrassed about the fact that you don't have anything on your show reel from the industry. Like I've hired plenty of people that haven't had previous work in games, because if nobody did that, there would be no more people in the industry. You have to start somewhere, and you shouldn't be embarrassed about that. Everyone realizes that. A very good thing you can do if you feel like you don't have enough stuff to show in your show reel is to take a trailer or some gameplay footage from a game and strip out the audio and redesign it yourself. And then just remake the music or the sound design. But what is very important if you do that is big text on top of it saying, re-sound design of this trailer, because you don't want anyone to think that you're trying to say you did that original trailer or that gameplay footage. You have to be very, very obvious about that. It doesn't happen a lot, but every now and then in my career, I've had people try and claim that they've done some work that they didn't. And you're not getting any further if you do that.
That's an immediate no-go.
Cool. So just so there's no confusion, if you're doing a re-sound design of a trailer, just big text saying re-sound design of this, whatever, God of War trailer or something like that. But if you do that, that's a completely accepted and standard way to have content on your show reel. I've seen it many times, and I've hired people based on the good work that they've done on those redesigns. So don't feel bad about that. It's just you need some content to show your skills. Also, variety is very important. Earlier on in my career, when I was like I guess between like a junior and a mid-level sound designer, unfortunately, the company I worked for died and I had to find some new work. But every game I'd done at that point was a first-person shooter, and I'd done some good work. It was like big AAA games, but my show reel was just shooters, just one after another, and I wasn't getting any work. And eventually someone gave me some feedback. It's like, well, your work's fine, but all we're seeing here is exactly the same every time. And their second bit of feedback, to follow up on that first, is just variety. Like even if you haven't worked on anything, maybe do some like Candy Crush kind of stuff and some documentaries. Just lay over some sound on it, label it as what it is. Just variety shows that you can do everything. It's very important for the games industry. And then also, when I didn't get those jobs earlier in my industry, people were saying, well, you have no presence online. That you don't seem to be, there's no sense of your passion online anywhere. So, maybe just make YouTube videos just about things, about the parts of the career that you care about, and talk to people on social media. Like there's a very active, very supportive community online on all social media. Like if you're just getting into the industry, just tag in some people, say, hey, how is this? Have I done a good job with this combat sequence? And people. Like I try and reply as much as possible, and I know audio directors from much bigger companies than me also are out there helping people, because we started at some point in the industry as well through the kindness of other people. So so my 2 points of advice are, I guess, show passion, get content available for people to see, and engage and talk to people. If you can go to if you can go to events and talk to people and show that you really want to get in the industry, then do it. So that's my first lump of advice. The second one is a little more simple. When you get your first opportunity in the industry, or or whatever you're doing, do it well. Communicate, like if your work's going to be late, that happens, that's fine. Like life is life, it happens. If you need another week, don't disappear. Like disappearing is the worst thing you can do. Like speaking now from the point of view of like an audio director, if I'm working with a composer and like I need a track, I'm like, hey man, how's it going? And I don't hear anything for 5 days, that's really bad and really unhelpful, because I have people above me, they're like, where's the track gone? And I'm like, I don't know. If you say, hey man, I'm struggling with it, I'm sorry about this, but I'm going to need another 4 days, that's completely fine. Like everybody expects that. So when you finally get a job, do your best work, communicate, just that's your opportunity to be good. Nobody hires composers again if they were unreliable on the last project. Unreliable is like the worst thing you can be, because, everyone is working on a schedule. We need the music. Games industry, there's some pressure, like it's better than it used to be, but you need to deliver. So if someone disappears and then like, oh no, I don't think I can write this song, I'm not feeling it, and like, it's no good. You have to write the music. So when you get the opportunity, get that music written. If it's some late nights and some hard work, it's almost not a popular thing to say anymore. Like to work hard and get that work done, but work hard and get that work done.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the beginning when you need that experience, it's good to put hours in.
I had a lot of late nights. I still do. Like and like for example, the recent expansion for Texas Chainsaw, for the it's called Rush Week. It's like with the John Carpenter Halloween style expansion. It was a bit of a funny story that I don't know where I got the idea from, but I thought I had until June 2025. I think I just made it up in my head, and then one day I said to the CEO, Wes, I was like, so how long do I have for this? He's like, well, we're announcing it today. I think you've got 3 weeks. I was like, oh, shit. But I was like, okay, all right, cancel everything out. I got rid of every other plan on my calendar, and I just worked like crazy, like late nights, early mornings, but got it done.
Yeah, sometimes those things happen. Yeah, I'm getting some slight flashbacks.
Yeah, it's not good to do it all the
Of course.
time, but every now and
Balance.
then you just have to like, boom, go for
Yeah,
it.
and make sure after to
And-
give yourself room to
Yes,
to
yeah.
really decompress again, because you
Yeah,
can't.
that is very important advice, because if you need, like, that's what I did. I was like, okay, the next 3 weeks I'm going to go crazy on this. I'm going to do nothing but work crazy hard on this music. Then afterwards, and that's what I did for like 2 weeks. I just spent time with my girlfriend and my cats, and I played my synthesizers and just relaxed.
That's perfect.
So yeah, balance I think is important.
Okay, so the last question I have, and that I ask all my guests, is what is the first sound you ever recorded, and why did you record it?
Do you want the first song or the
The
first, bit of
first
sound
thing
design?
ever. It doesn't matter. The first thing that comes into your mind, because it's always, the question is aimed to just get your mind going, and sometimes interesting stories come out of it. No, let's scratch that. Every time something interesting comes out of it.
Actually, the second you asked that, I realized I can answer both music and sound design, and both of them are weird.
Perfect. Then
Okay,
start
so
with one.
the first song I ever recorded was, I think I said earlier, my family was moving around the world for my father's work when I was young. So I lived in Dubai when I was a teenager, and I was at American high school. But in my high school, I had like a music class. Like in my final year, you can kind of move towards the area you're interested in. So I had to write a song for the end of my music class. I'm still very like a gothic dude. Like I was a big goth for like 20 years. I had like lots of like white face makeup and lots of like crazy hair and stuff. Listened to gothic music. So in high school, the first song I ever wrote in this class was called Gothic Love. It was so bad. I really wish I had it.
Yes.
I had a cassette for years. I've lost it now. But I remember the chorus was Gothic Love. I was so bad. So
Wonderful.
bad. I would love, if I had it now, I would release it just because it's so funny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then the first sound design I ever did, when I joined in-house at the studio Free Radical that made Time Splitters and a lot of games. We made a game called Haze that actually it went really badly. Like a lot of factors. There was actually a lot of stuff about the game that was really cool. But my first day there, I did some sound design on it, and I had to do the sound of a guy falling off a balcony and smacking his head on a railing and crushing his skull. So I had to go, ah! It's my first ever sound design in the games industry. So
Real
there we
old
go.
school gore sounds. Nice.
Yeah.
No, those are wonderful answers. Yeah, so I think that's all. So if you have anything you want to shout out, any projects, any upcoming things, or any things you I mean, we already shed a light on Homefront, and I'm going to check that out for sure, Homefront the Revolution. Anything else you want to shout out, feel free.
Well, as of today, I have some new music for the game, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They just released a new map. Every time they release a new map, I release like a new set of music to go with it. So I have some cool kind of like a bit more of a gothic noir take on the normal soundtrack. So that's available. I released an album this year, which if you put in my name, Ross Tregenza, there's not a lot of Ross Tregenzas. It's a weird name. So if you put that on Spotify, you'll find my album. Also this year, there was the soundtrack for the expansion I talked about earlier for Texas Chainsaw called Rush Week, which is like a John Carpenter, like electro dark synth thing. I'm really, really, really happy with that. So definitely check that out. And finally, then there's the soundtrack for Helldivers 2, where you got my Super Earth anthem and another track on there. And yeah, I'm super happy with that. So proud to be part of it. Other than that, if you've got any questions about composing or sound design for games, please feel free to come and just find me online and chat to me. I don't bite. I love talking about all this stuff. So if you message me, I'll reply. I promise. Thank you very much, dude. It was a pleasure.
Well, thanks again for your time. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Looking for more audio-related podcasts to listen to? We're part of the Audio Podcast Alliance, featuring a hand-picked selection of the very best podcasts about sound. Be sure to hear the latest episodes from our friends in the community at audiopodcast.org. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting on patreon.com/fieldandfoley or ko-fi.com/fieldandfoley, where you gain early access to episodes in lossless format and can submit questions for our guests. Thank you for listening.